Yum! Cardboard.
How's it going, YouTube Nation? It's the Homie Game Guru, and I'm on start my journey. I'm going to Great Lakes Comic Con for today, the Friday, and then Saturday, and then coming back Saturday night. So I decided, okay, this is something new for the new year about vlogging my journeys and doing Comic Cons and my experiences. So behind me, I'm packing very light because this is a US show. So I don't need a whole ton of stuff, just a box full of like my tablecloths and fixtures, some posters, and yeah, there's my dolly. That's about it. It's going to be a very long, kind of ugly drive because we've been hit by a snowstorm for both the northern US and Ontario into Quebec. So, well, not a horrible snowstorm, but a fair amount of snow, and the roads are just slippery and slick. Normally it's about a 4-hour drive to get there from Mississauga all the way to Warren, Michigan, but because of the snow and how just slow it's going to be, I just gotta take my time. Let's go, on my way to Michigan. I took some fast pictures as I drove along to show the road conditions. The roads weren't horrible, but they weren't good either. I have a 4-wheel drive SUV, so that's a plus when you're driving on roads that feel like it's on oatmeal. The highways got better just outside of Hamilton and were clear and golden straight through London and along the 402 to Port Huron. Crossing the border into the US was fast and painless. Quick shot down the cleared I-94 and I was there. This is the convention floor in its raw, let's get set up form. One of the fun parts of attending Comic-Cons, for me anyways as a vendor, is figuring out the best way to display my products. Put them in a way that really captivates patrons' attentions. Because I only packed simple display items and was selling only comic books, my setup was very easy and quick. This was definitely a benefit when the show ended, with an equally as fast spaced teardown and exit. Usually I would bring my handmade 3D glow-in-the-dark cardboard comic book art pieces. But because this was a US show, I didn't bring them. Even though those pieces are my best sellers and would probably sell out, I didn't want the hassle at the border. I've been there, done that, never again. So instead the show was 100% my indie comics. I displayed a handful of comics sent to me by my good friend Anthony Moore of Limitless Comics, my series Paper Rock Scissors and Stuff Wars, my new horror comic book series Dalflo: A Serial Worth Killing For, and a few copies of Harpy Vardith. The majority of my comic books were printed by Amazon USA and sent to me in the US for the show. This meant my overall inventory was made in the USA for an American show, and I could avoid importing headaches. Anything I didn't sell would just come back with me as products I own. Okay, for the remainder of this video, as I verbally share my experiences and random observations from this first convention of 2022, I'm going to show you pictures of the men and women who bought my comics while at the show. With the exception of 3 of these people who previously bought my comic books the year before and were just returning fans and they actually sought me out, the vast majority are brand new customers who took the chance on my books. I made sure that each one knew I was eternally grateful for them taking the chance on my products, and that I will work tirelessly to ensure their investment in my books will pay off in the long term. These folks are a celebration of what I love about Comic-Cons, as I'm about to talk to you about things that make Comic-Cons challenging. So let's get at it. Here's the truth about being an independent comic book seller, with concepts no one has heard of before. At Comic-Cons, you have to work really hard to convince people why they should separate with their $5, $10, or $20, whatever it may be, for your book. It is hard work, very tiring, and you have to develop a thick skin for the copious amounts of rejections you will get. The rejections will flow like Homelander's bloodlust. Patrons at most major Comic-Cons have limited money to spend, and they have a buffet of options to choose from. There are the established comic book resellers selling established comics. You have celebrity guests and comic book veterans charging for autographs. You have pop vinyl figures galore. There are the oddities and novelties offered by fellow vendors in addition to fellow indie comic book sellers. You are simply a single drop in a crowded bucket, and you have to come out of your shell to earn every sale. Even though I'm an introverted personality, when it comes to shows, my inner extrovert comes out like He-Man at a Stomp Skeletor skull party. Sitting quietly waiting for someone to stop by my table is not an option. So many potential sales are lost by not reaching out to patrons. But then again, I have learned to watch body language, and there are patrons I know will not buy off me. The best tell that I can give is what I call the look away. In this regards, when walking through the aisle, they will make sure not to make any eye contact with me and will actually physically walk past my table or booth on the far side of the aisle. It's like you have scabies and Peacemaker's dad is hugging you and they want to be as far from that as possible. At least 60% of my sales are from patrons I reached out to who were walking by with no indication of stopping at my table. The difference is I caught them making eye contact in my direction, or I saw that they had a happy demeanor as they walked. The look away isn't there, so I knew there's a chance. I have rehearsed funny elevator speeches for each one of my books to grab patrons' attention. When it works, I do my magic to convince this complete stranger to give my book a chance. I actually keep a list of the number of people I reach out every day at each convention I go to. Simple etched lines in a notebook for every attempt made. I keep track of the rejections I get versus the sales achieved. At this show, the ratio was roughly 8-1, 8 rejections for every 1 sale. This isn't actually too bad, to be honest. I've had ratios as high as 21-1 in the past. Getting rejections of all types for all type of reasons is just part of the journey. Like at past Comic-Cons, the what I like to call friendly rejections plays like a greatest hits list. Classics like, "That's so cool. Good luck with that. Oh my god, so awesome. And my top favorite. I'll think about it and maybe come back around later." They never get old. I could say with 100% certainty that when someone says, after my pitch, "That's so cool," the chance of a sale is done. It's not going to happen. I know it sounds contradictory that someone says that they find your stuff cool or awesome but doesn't want it, but that is just the reality. It's the patron's polite way of walking away while trying to leave you with a compliment. Most indie sellers know this. It is what it is. I find that only 10% of those who say "I'll come back around" actually do. And when they do say it, I know which ones are being sincere, because again, it's based on body language. Understanding body language is an important selling tool. It helps you ensure that you don't waste your time or you don't waste the time of a disinterested person. Sometimes the rejections you will receive are fascinating. At this show, I experienced something rare, but I have gone through before, what I like to refer to as rude tween girl dagger. This is the 4th time I've experienced this in the 6 years I've done Comic-Cons. In this example, you have a group or a pair of tween or teen girls who come up to my table. One of them is definitely interested in my stuff, but the other tween girl out loud calls my stuff like very rude things like dumb or stupid, and then pulls the interested friend away, ensuring they don't buy from me. It has been a while, at least a year or 2 since this has happened, but it did happen at this show, and that rude friend made sure that everyone within earshot of her knew that she thought my comic book paper rock scissors stuff wars was, and I quote, such a dumb idea," as she yanked her friend away from the table to buy a photocopied anime picture for double the price, mind you, than my book at another vendor, but kudos to that vendor for getting the sale. And so, not to make it look like I'm picking on the young, there was also this older gentleman who came up to my table, and he freely came to my table and told me he loved my comic books and he would buy from me, my brother, if he had any money left, but he was broke. But he wished me luck. So I'm like, all right, cool. Right after that, he went to a table further down in the same aisle as in, but on the other side, and took out a wad of cash to buy something from that vendor. I guess he realized just then that I might be watching from behind, which I was, and he tried to conceal the purchase before scurrying off. I found the whole thing funny. Now, he didn't have to lie to me to avoid buying my comic books. Again, I didn't even call out to him. He just freely came to my table. But this is the Comic-Con world. People can be weird. And of course, I've experienced what many vendors have gone through, which is what I call cosplay crowding at my table. It happened a few times. This is when young cosplayers converge in front of your table to take pictures or to gossip away for an extended period of time. They literally block customers from your table because gabbing away amongst themselves or having strangers take pictures of them is of prime importance. This is a very common thing at Comic Cons, and I already know how to solve the problem. I give people this advice. If this happens to you if you're a vendor, simply try to sell them your product. That is it. The minute you do that, bam! You might get screwface from them, but they will scatter like the X-Men when Professor X has a headache. Problem solved. This is why I so deeply respect and appreciate those who actually come to my table and buy my comics, like the amazing people that I'm streaming in these pictures. They made the choice to give my concepts a chance and are helping to build my business. These pictures serve as a reminder to me of who these people are because I want to remember them. Oh, and I should add this in. Here are some payments advice for fellow potential vendors wanting to do international Comic Cons. For anyone looking to cross the border for a show and you want to accept credit card payments, know that Square won't work. Square will only work in the country where you have either a social security number for Americans or social insurance number for Canadians. Once you cross that border, it won't process your payments. Many of the other portable payment processors work the same way. Now, I was lucky at this show because a neighbor of mine was willing to process the credit card payments for me and then give me the cash. But this is definitely an issue I have to figure out because at least a third of my sales were made through credit cards. So just be aware. Now the big picture. Did I make money doing this show? Ultimately, after expenses, like my biggest one, which was gas, because again, I drive a 6-cylinder SUV and I'm driving 4 hours, plus hotel, food, and inventory, I barely made a profit. I didn't lose money and I was able to cover my basic expenses, but it definitely wasn't a home run show. But that being said, I have no regrets in attending. And as mentioned before, I was without a lot of my core inventory that I didn't want to have problems at the border trying to get into US. And always remember, when you're doing Comic Cons, there are benefits beyond just making money. I've made some new artist connections. I've created new fans of my work. I've met established fans. And I've continued to hone my selling skills. I enjoyed attending the Great Lakes Comic Con. I'm glad it's my first one of 2022, and I look forward to attending next year. Each show you attend is a learning experience. Making money is just one part of the equation. Now it's time for me to plan for my next show in March. I'm going to have multiple Comic Cons per month going forward. If you're interested in knowing where I'm going to be next, you can visit my website, handmadecardboardinnovations.com, and I have a list of all the Comic Cons I'll be going to. Thanks for watching, and to all the indie comic book fans in Michigan who supported Zelfa Comics and Carol Zelfa Novelties, thank you again for your support. Cheers.